Welcome to English Story Hub. Learn English through fun stories. Improve vocabulary, listening, and speaking skills. Like, subscribe, and keep learning with us.
The mirror of his heart. The shop smelled of old paper and stranger things, wax, metal, and the faint tang of something like blood long dried. Adrian Vale hesitated on the threshold. He wasn't sure what had drawn him in. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps the way the door had seemed to open for him before he touched it. Inside, the light was dim and golden, cast by a dozen lamps whose flames did not flicker, though there was no glass to shield them from the draught. The walls were crowded with shelves and cases, each packed with things that did not quite belong: clocks that ticked backward, a violin strung with silver wire, bottles of starlight that pulsed faintly as though alive. Adrian almost turned back. He didn't belong in a place like this. His life was clean lines and polished steel, meetings that smelled of ink and ambition. But then he saw it, propped in a shadowed corner, half-shrouded by a moth-eaten velvet cloth. A mirror. Not beautiful in any obvious way. Its frame was bronze, etched with curling lines that might have been script in a language time had forgotten. The glass rippled slightly, like the surface of a disturbed pond. Yet the pull of it was immediate, visceral, as though the mirror had been waiting for him. "An honest mirror," said a voice. Adrian turned sharply. The shopkeeper stood behind the counter like he had always been there, a thin man in a suit the color of old smoke, his smile small and sharp. His eyes were pale, almost colorless, and when he blinked, Adrian thought for a moment he saw something move. Beneath the lids, like a second set of pupils. "Honest," Adrian said, forcing a polite laugh. "What does that mean?" The man's smile widened. "It shows the truth." Adrian arched a brow. "All mirrors do." "Not this one," the shopkeeper said. His fingers, long and white, rested on the counter. "This mirror does not show the face you wear for the world. It shows the thing you carry inside. The part of you that cannot lie." Adrian felt the words catch somewhere deep in his chest. "You mean, my soul? If you like that word." The man's voice was soft, almost kind. "Or your heart. Call it what you will." Adrian looked back at the mirror. A chill crept along his spine. And why would anyone want to see that? The shopkeeper shrugged, as if the answer were obvious: curiosity. Redemption. Despair. People come for many reasons. They all leave changed. Adrian hesitated. "How much?" The man's smile thinned. "Everything." Adrian frowned. "Everything?" The shopkeeper chuckled softly. "Your cash, sir. Nothing more. For now." Adrian laughed with relief, though something in the man's tone left a splinter under his skin. He emptied his wallet, far more than the thing was worth, and carried the mirror home through streets slick with evening rain. His apartment was a study in restrained luxury: leather, glass, polished wood. The mirror looked out of place, hunched in its shadowed corner like an old dog waiting to die. Adrian hung it in his study, opposite the desk where he built the empire of his life. When he uncovered the glass, his breath hitched. He expected his own reflection, the strong jaw, the tailored suit, the grey eyes that held entire boardrooms in thrall. Instead, the mirror showed something else. Not a face, not a man, a heart, suspended in darkness, curled in on itself like a dying leaf, pulsing weakly with threads of shadow instead of light. Adrian stared, throat tight. His hands gripped the frame so hard his knuckles whitened. He smiled, just to see what would happen. Forced his mouth into the practiced charm that had won him contracts and lovers alike. The heart in the mirror grew darker. Ink spilled through its veins, curling like smoke, as if the smile had fed it poison. Adrian's own smile faltered. He tried again, bigger this time, teeth flashing in the lamplight. The darkness deepened. Adrian stumbled back, chest heaving. His pulse roared in his ears. He killed the lights and left the room. But even in bed, with the door shut and the city's hum rising from the streets below, he saw it behind his eyelids, that black, writhing thing. For 3 days, he told himself it was a trick. Some old carnival contraption, a smear of paint on glass. He carried the mirror from room to room, testing it in. Every light. Always the same, a heart wrapped in shadow, trembling like a candle about to die. On the 4th day, something happened. Adrian was walking home through a narrow street when he saw him. A man hunched in the mouth of an alley, drenched in rain, skin the color of paper. A beggar, shivering, clutching an empty cup. Adrian would have walked on. He always did. Pity was a weakness, a luxury for people with nothing to lose. But as he stepped past, the beggar lifted his head, and something broke in Adrian's chest. He gave the man his coat. Without thinking. Without calculation. The beggar's eyes filled with stunned tears. He whispered something, thanks or prayer, and Adrian walked away before the words could catch him. That night, when Adrian returned to the mirror, his hands still cold from the rain, he stopped dead. The heart glowed. Faintly, like dawn behind fog, but it glowed. Adrian sunk into the chair before it, breath shaking. The sight filled him with something fierce and wild, something like hope. And so began the rest of his life. A life spent trying to make it shine. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He sat before the mirror, staring at the faint glow in the heart's tangled darkness. It wasn't much, just a fragile shimmer, trembling like the last star in a polluted sky, but it was there. Proof. The glow had come from the coat. He was certain of it. The memory replayed in his mind, the beggar's shaking. Hands clutching wool, the cracked lips whispering thanks. For years, Adrian had built his life on taking, contracts, deals, influence, but one act of giving had cracked something open in the mirror. By morning, Adrian had a plan. He started small. Tips that stung more than they should. Donations to charities heed. Once dismissed as parasites. A check slid quietly into the hands of a single mother who cleaned his building at night. Every time, he ran home to the mirror. Every time, the glow brightened, fraction by fraction. Adrian began to crave it. It wasn't vanity. Not exactly. It was redemption. He'd never believed in souls, but now he could see his own, and it was rotting. Until now. Until this. The boardroom noticed the change. Adrian Vale, the man with ice in his veins, began smiling at interns. He remembered birthdays. He stopped cutting meetings short to chase the next. 0 on his balance sheet. His colleagues called it mellowing. Adrian called it penance. Weeks passed. The glow grew. But so did something else. It began with the woman in the coffee shop. Adrian had ducked in to escape a sudden downpour, his umbrella forgotten. In a cab. The place smelled of rain and roasted beans, warm light pooling on worn wood tables. He ordered black coffee, old habits, and was reaching for his phone when he felt someone watching him. She sat by the window, steam ghosting her face. Dark hair tucked behind one ear, eyes the color of storm clouds, not grey, not blue, but something restless between. She didn't look away when he met her gaze. Adrian found himself walking over. Words came easy, too easy, for a man whose charm had always been a blade, never a bridge. She laughed softly, like falling leaves, and told him her name, Elara. They talked until the rain stopped. About books. About music that ached in the bones. About things Adrian didn't tell anyone, not because they were secrets, but because no one had ever asked. When she left, he realized he hadn't once thought about the mirror. That night, he stood before it anyway, guilt gnawing like a rat. The glow was steady, the darkness thinner. He should have felt peace. Instead, a question curled in his gut. Would Elara still look at him like that if she saw this? He pushed the thought away. The next day, he saw her again. Then again. Until it wasn't chance anymore. Elara was nothing like the people in Adrian's world. She painted for a living, poorly, he suspected, given the chipped nails and frayed cuffs of her sweaters. She didn't care about power or profit. When Adrian spoke of his work, she smiled politely and changed the subject, as if skyscrapers were just shadows on the wall. He should have walked away. She was a detour he couldn't afford. But every time she laughed, something inside him loosened, something the mirror could never touch. Then came the boy. Adrian found him on a side street after midnight, small and thin, digging through a trash bin. A child, no older than 8. Adrian's first instinct was to keep walking. But the glow, it was all he could think of. "Hey," he said gently, kneeling so the boy wouldn't bolt. "Are you hungry?" The boy's eyes flicked up, hollow, feral. He nodded once. Adrian took him to a diner that smelled of grease and loneliness. Ordered pancakes, bacon, hot chocolate. Watched the boy devour everything like a drowning man drinking air. "What's your name?" Adrian asked. "Caleb," the boy mumbled through syrup-sticky lips. Adrian drove him to a shelter after that. Left a fat envelope with the matron, her eyes wide with gratitude. That night, the heart blazed. Not faint. Not fragile. Blazed, red gold and fierce, like a sun breaking through storm. Adrian stared until tears burned his eyes. But then he noticed something else. At the edges of the glow, the darkness wasn't gone. It was moving slow, subtle, but alive. Curling tendrils creeping inward, coiling like snakes, feeding on the light. Adrian stumbled back. His mouth was dry as ash. For the first time since he bought the mirror, he felt fear. It worsened quickly. The more he gave, the more the heart glowed, but the shadows grew bolder too, writhing like roots in poisoned soil. Adrian tried everything: gifts, charity, sleepless nights spent volunteering where no cameras could see. Each act lit the glass brighter, and each time, the darkness thickened at the core, hungrily drinking the glow. Adrian couldn't understand it. Wasn't this what goodness was? Why did it feel like feeding a beast? He started dreaming of the mirror. Waking to find himself standing before it, fingers pressed to the glass, breath fogging the surface like prayer. Elara noticed the change. Of course she did. "You're thinner," she said one evening, brushing her fingers over the jut of his collarbone. "And your eyes." "Adrian, when was the last time you slept?" He laughed it off. Lied like he used to, smooth and easy. But guilt tasted bitter now. She kissed him anyway. For a moment, the world fell quiet. The hunger receded. Until he opened his eyes and saw the mirror, waiting in the dark. The breaking point came 2 nights later. Adrian was crossing a bridge when he saw the wreck, a car crumpled against the rail, flames licking rain-slick metal. A woman inside, pounding the glass, her screams shredding the air. Adrian ran. Tore at the door until his hands bled. Dragged her out seconds before the tank blew. He woke in a hospital, lungs full of smoke, ribs cracked. Cameras flashed. Reporters clamored. "Hero! Hero! Hero!" But Adrian didn't care. He cared about the mirror. He tore the foe from his arm, limped home like a man possessed. The heart was blazing when he reached it, so bright the glass should have shattered. For an instant, he thought he'd won. Thought he'd burned the darkness out. Then he saw the truth. The light wasn't pure anymore. It flickered, fractured, bleeding into shadow. The heart pulsed like a thing in pain, veins of black snaking through gold. Adrian sunk to his knees. For the first time in years, he prayed. He didn't notice Elara at first. standing in the doorway, face pale in the glow. "Adrian," she whispered. What is that?" Her voice broke him. He turned, tears cutting hot tracks down soot-streaked skin. Words clawed at his throat. Desperate to tell her everything, about the mirror, the hunger, the man he was trying to kill inside himself. But behind her, the shadows stirred. And Adrian understood. The mirror hadn't come to show him his heart. It had come to feed.